Dear audience, welcome to another episode with Dr. Frank. So, let's start this podcast in a very creative way. And I was thinking about a story that inspired me from Jim Rohn. And it was once upon a time was a leader and a young man. And the leader told the young man, well, I got a suggestion for you. You're 20 or 25 years old. Yeah, this is good. Sure, you made some mistakes, but you will have the road to better things, and this is good also. And you have a family, worth it. Yeah, definitely, it's worth it. And you've got every reason to do this. Now, listen to what the leader said. Why don't you set a goal to become a millionaire? Why don't you set a goal to become a millionaire? In this world where everything is possible, it's got a nice ring to it. Yeah, isn't it? And enough zeros to impress your accountant. So this is very impressive suggestion, don't you think? And the leader stopped and told the young man, and here's why I want you to start working on this. Now the young man started to think, and he said, well, the leader doesn't need to teach me why, because I'm thinking wouldn't be great? Wouldn't be great to have $1 million? Yeah, great, but the leader said no, that's not it. And here's why. And what I'm about to say is the key in this podcast. You know, the leader said, for what it will make of you to achieve it. For what it will make of you to achieve it. So here's the lesson. It's not the money. The money it's not important. But what's important is the man you become. So in this podcast, we will try to give you some skills that will help you not just to go through your journey, to make the best of your journey, but to set goals that makes you stretch that far. And we're an all-encompassing challenge to have a better vision for the future, isn't it? And the greatest value isn't to ask that what am I getting in this podcast, or what am I getting for listening this podcast, but what am I becoming here? And this is the question that everyone, every student, every young professional, every young leader should ask in schools, in their jobs, in every part of their daily life. What you are becoming here. And this is the main question. And in this podcast, we will try to give you insights, skills that you need to become the man you want to be. And now, listen, we can go through a lot of things, but this is the whole philosophy. So I'm calling you, dear student, dear young leader, young professional, I am calling you to comprehend and understand that this is the whole philosophy, and we're trying to gain new skills in order to inspire to a better generation, to a better future. So this will be very exciting, and in this podcast we will dive into many topics like how to navigate conflicts with confidence, how to create your personal brand, how to brand yourself in front of your jobs and everything, and how to master goal achievement, how to maximize human resources for investigation and everything. So keep the chain with us in this podcast, and let's go through it. But before starting, I would like to present Dr. Frank, and the better way to do this is to give him the opportunity to present himself. Welcome, Dr. Frank, with us today.
Greetings, Sahid. Thank you so much for inviting me to be part of this awesome podcast. Greetings, colleagues from around the world. It is truly an honor to participate and to be with you today. And there were so many nuggets. I hope you were able to extract the nuggets that were just shared with us. Several items, the why do we jump out of bed each morning, right? And so, From my perspective, my background, I started out as a chemical operator on rotating shift hours, and quickly realized I needed an education. I needed to learn from others. And so I became a lifelong learner. And that's what each of you who have dialed in are actually displaying. And so you have a powerful why you want to take it to the next level. So my background, real quick, I was able to continue to, grow my skills, certifications, degrees, and I transitioned into the laboratory environment. I was a research and development technician, transitioned that into human resources, eventually focusing on labor relations and Six Sigma black belt. And so I always, share with folks, and I take this advice myself: always plan your tomorrow today. And that's my tagline, frankingram.com. I always share with folks, we should always plan our tomorrow, because life is going to change. Nothing stays the same. And thankfully I did, because my corporate world changed after many years in human resources. My tomorrow was to teach in a higher education. And thankfully, I was prepared to do that. Reputation, relationships, education, knowledge. And 2 weeks after leaving my corporate assignment, I was hired by a university. And so I've had the very fortunate opportunity to work in higher education for almost a decade. And so, you're always planning your tomorrow. So, I love what Saeed said about having goals. My goodness, yes. Having a goal, what is the purpose, your definite major purpose. I'm excited to be here today. I'm looking forward to the various topics that we're going to discuss. And so, without further ado, I'll turn it back over to Saeed. Thank you so much.
With pleasure. We're actually very, very, very thrilled to have you today. And we're excited to go through our skills of today. And in the meantime, Dr. Frank will help us in this podcast to navigate the future tomorrow. So first thing and first of things, many students, many young professionals, many of our audiences struggle with stressful situations, with stressful conflict situations in their schools, in their family relationships, in their relationships in general. And this is a main skill that everyone should gain, because it helps you open new doors for your future. Because once you get many things done, many conflicts done easily with confidence, you can open new doors, open new frontiers, and challenge yourself. So how about, Dr. Frank, that if you can tell us how it's important to navigate conflict with confidence? Is it important? Is active listening important? Is empathy important in disruptive resolution? And if you have some examples of successful conflict resolution, we would love to hear that.
Absolutely, I'd be honored to start. And so I always like to. I love talking about what we're going to be focused on with self-confidence, right? And the importance of active listening and empathy in any situation, whether it's disputing an issue. The world is sometimes not kind to others, to each of us. Each of us have a story, right? But it's the mindset, and so what we, how we position ourselves. And so first, one of the things that I focused on and learned to build my self-confidence was to listen to understand. And so, too often as I was in a conversation or with others, I was preparing my response instead of actively listening to what the person was sharing. And so, when we are listening mindfully with our mind and really hear what others are saying, what they need, what their major concerns are. And so that's what you're talking about with that active listening and that resolution of any dispute, listening with an open mind, listen to, what is the message being shared? What am I receiving? And then to restate and reflect and summarize. That's a powerful technique. And I'm still doing it myself. So I don't want to pretend that, I've got it mastered. I have to remind myself to be able to pause, wait a second before responding, and then to clarify, to ensure that I heard what the other person was saying. And so to understand what they want, why they want it, to maintain neutrality in myself. I'm a trained mediator and an ombudsman. And so, dealing with conflict is not uncommon. I'm a labor relations, a bargainer with unions. And so, that's a trait, a technique, a skill set, an attribute that each of us need to hone to make better. And so allowing parties to, share in a respectful way the difference of opinion, that sharing frustrations or emotions or feelings, because we're human beings, we all have feelings. And so, if something is not going so well, maybe there's an opportunity to take a moment, pause, and listen, and then be able to, share. So, navigating conflict with confidence is, for me, it's really a key part of who I am. But make no mistake, it's easy to be distracted, right? And so listening with our full mind, our full body, our spirit. So, having that, ability to self-confidence, being persistent and that continuous physical action, moving into reality, our mindset, thinking in a clear mental picture, right? And so, in speaking from a truth and justice perspective, always be willing to serve in a way that helps that, So real life examples for me of successful conflict, and you may be able to relate to this or not. Each of us have stories, right? So we could probably share the rest of the time together today, just talking about what we've experienced. But so, for example, at work, at our job, and have you ever worked in an environment where there's a loud radio, or the type of music maybe doesn't, we're not really, maybe it's a conflict, an inner conflict. And so instead of us getting very emotional and worked up, maybe there's a way to discuss what options are. Maybe the person who was playing the music loud, or the type of music, didn't realize the impact that it was having on us. And so maybe an option would be headphones or earpods, or, maybe at school, in the education environment. And here in the U.S., we've had, a lot of legislation and policy in place to address name calling and bullying, right? And so, again, school, all ages, all, grades. And so it's just reviewing what's acceptable for our behavior. So, it's reviewing with that policy. Maybe I didn't even realize that I offended somebody. Maybe it was a microaggression. Maybe it's, maybe I'm clueless and I didn't understand the words I use affected somebody and it caused them conflict. So, having that, conversation helps. Maybe our neighbors, right? Our next door neighbor or in our community, maybe there's bushes or trees. Maybe the branches are hanging over our fence, our yard, our space. Maybe they're hitting our, place of residence. And so, having the ability to converse, Frank, when I don't know if you recognize, but the leaves just are consuming my house, or the branches are hitting my house or my home. And so, is it okay to trim those bushes? Would you like to do it, or can I? Having that conversation. The common thread to all of this is communication, conversation. And so, not putting ourselves in any unsafe situation. I'm not talking about that. But, conflict, it doesn't have to be so emotionally draining. And just having that, as I started, having the ability to actively listen and that empathy to be able to engage and address those circumstances. So that's what comes to mind when I'm thinking about navigating conflict with confidence.
Yeah, you shared some valuable things like listening with empathy, which is very, very important in today's world, and listening with an open mind, because there are many differences, many cultures, many ideas of that people can have. So make the time so that you can understand what others people are want to say, what others people feel, because empathy is linked to emotions. So try to understand their emotions. And I might add also that a study of Harvard years ago told us that the future of sales, for those of you who work on sales, the future of sales is a relationship sales. People who like you, who wants you, who want your products, who likes your personality, who listen to you, are your clients. So the future of sales is relationship sales. And what you can gain from this is that you should listen, and you should give people time to express themselves, to understand what are the situations, what are the emotions that they want to share. And one last thing before to move to the next question is that you say that it's very important, which is make a self-assessment of what of your day. For example, if you had a great day and you had big conflicts during that day, you can while you're in bed, you can take the time, talk with yourself, and say, for example, this time I had X conflicts and Z conflicts, for example. And the things that you're going to do is to make time to analyze, to see how the person reacts, what they say, how did they react, and how did you react. So and you need discipline to do that, because if you do it every day and every day and every day, you will become a great conflict resolution. So maybe you should make time to analyze, to make self-assessments of your days, of your conflicts. So next time you should be better. And it takes time. Sure, it takes discipline to do this. It takes consistency, as you said, persistency, but you should make it. So you should make time for self-assessment, and analyzing your day conflicts. And this led us to the next question, which is after a stressful resolution, maybe students need to know, and our audience need to know, how they became themselves, and use storytelling, use their strengths, their values, their passions to make a brand of themselves, to present themselves as valuable as they are, as original as they are, so that any job can take you so that you can achieve any goal. And we will talk about goals later. So yeah, you can answer us.
Absolutely. So thank you, Saeed, for sharing that question. Crafting our personal brand. I'm excited to be able to share. I've written a book, Personal Branding, Life Planning Mastery, and it's available on Amazon. And I loved hearing, and you've said it a couple times today, having a goal. What are we focused on? Where are we pointing our brain, right? And so, the one of the goals that I've had, and have already, I'm this close to accomplishing it for this year, is to turn my book into an audio book. And so it is due to be released at the end of March 2024. And so it too will be available on Amazon. So I'm exactly describing what I'm living, what Saeed is talking about with goals. And so that's our blueprint for our brand, right? And so, again, when I think about a brand, I think it's really our reputation. And when we're looking at our reputation, and as we just heard, have we really taken the time to evaluate and identify what our unique strengths are, the values, the passions we have for personal branding? I can tell you, if you haven't taken the time to self-evaluate. We just heard from Saeed share that self-assessment. These are more than just words. These are things that can make us better. And so I've done that on myself. What are my strengths? What are my values? Because the importance of that is we will get faced with life situations that cause us conflict, the point that we were just talking about, right? And so having that awareness, the understanding of who we are as a person, we're all equal with 24/7, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Our circumstances, our surroundings, our relationships certainly, help us in different ways. So the basic reputation, our views, our viewpoint, how we see things, who are we surrounding ourselves with? What are we reading? What are we saying, right? And so when we're looking at, being in a community, being in the world, and so we're just one member of that larger global environment, it's important for us to be aware, to be intentional with our brand, our reputation, to be able to identify that. It's, for example, the trade name of, I bet each of us, as soon as I say the word Nike, you're automatically thinking of sportswear. When I say Tesla, what may come to mind is electric vehicles. When I say Coca-Cola, you're thinking of a soft drink or a soda, right? And so it's each of us have a brand, and so organizations too have a brand. So when we're looking at that special uniqueness, you, me, we, each of us have uniqueness. And so just know what that is. My uniqueness is I'm able to help others plan their tomorrow, today, right? And so that building that relationship. And so utilizing some storytelling and some visual, bringing all this together, it really comes down to communication, connection, right? And so You may or may have not have heard this story, but it resonates with me. The Nobel Peace Prize. There's 6 categories of Nobel prizes. Peace Prize is just one category, and so Alfred Nobel was the originator, the founder of creating the Nobel Prizes. Interestingly enough, he made a vast fortune by producing explosives, and he sold explosives. There was a lot of conflict around the world, wars, and so he made a lot of money by selling explosives. Lo and behold, one morning he is in his kitchen reading the local newspaper and is reading his obituary. They're saying Dr. Death died. Well, they're talking about him. And what he realized it was his brother who had passed away. The reporter mixed up the brothers. So fast forward, as he's reading that, he's like, this is my legacy. This is my brand. This is what I'm going to be known for. And vowed from that moment forward that he would take the vast portion of his wealth and create the Nobel Prizes. And 8 years later, when he died, not one word was mentioned about explosives or death. So where each of us are at this exact moment in time, if we don't necessarily like what maybe our brand represents, it's not too late to adjust, to change, to modify. And so if we don't know what our brand is, who do you trust? What are, maybe reach out to 6 colleagues, those that you know that will be honest with you, and ask them, when you look at Frank Ingram, what do you see? What is his brand, right? And so that you probably already know what your brand is, but Alfred Nobel is a prime example. So, your 5 closest friends, 6 closest friends, and then what I would challenge you to do for your consideration, take that information and boil it down into a 6-word description. And so if you think about that, it takes work. It takes real intentionality to boil your reputation, your brand down into 6 words. So you might be saying, okay, Dr. Frank, what's your brand? Well, I'll share. Helping people plan their tomorrow today. That's my brand, right? So, Saeed, that's, when we're talking about crafting our personal brand, our blueprint, identifying our strengths and our values and our passion, and, visualizing and those storytelling kind of drive home the importance of our brand. I'll turn it back over to you.
Yeah, thank you. Well, it's such a great example of how to brand yourself. And what I may summarize for our audience is that, you see, it's interesting how our points of views are the same, but are very different in the way we present things. I might add to your example that, it's a very controversial thing to say, because knowing your strengths starts by knowing your weaknesses.
Yes.
You see, that's the logic. It's very controversial. You can see that if you want to start by knowing your strengths, your values start by knowing your weaknesses. So when you know your weaknesses, and when you start self-assessments every day, and also in how you can self-assess yourself, or analyze or identify the fears that you have. So first, you start by identifying your mistakes. And it takes courage to do that. It takes courage to talk about your mistakes.
Yes.
With yourself, with your parents, with your with everyone around you. It takes courage to talk about your mistakes, your fears. And after talking about your mistakes, after understanding your mistakes, you can move to say, why am I doing this? Why am I doing this mistake? Why am I doing this? Why I have fear from future? And once you start taking this deep conversations with yourself, you will start thinking about the future, because naturally in our minds, we the man and the woman brains are the same, and we both want to project ourselves in the future. But what stops us is the fear from future, the fear from what's going to happen, and usually from our daily life. And the how you talk about an interesting thing is that I can't miss this one, is that use everything you have around you as a chance to succeed, as an opportunity to see your future. And when I say this, you're talking about the books you read, the people you hang out with, and every time you can challenge yourself and say, is this the kind of person that I want to be? For example, we're talking about your friends. Is this the type of person that I want to go out with, that I want to have drinks with, that I want to succeed with? So ask yourself, when you became the man you want to be, is this the kind of person that I want to be in bed with? So this is very important. And the last thing is that when you identify the things that are around you, and you start by identifying yourself, then the things around you, your books, your friends, your family, everything, you should become obsessed by the things you want to achieve. And when I say obsessed, I say in every minute, every second of your breathing life. Whenever you breathe, you should think of your future. Whenever you breathe, you should think about the things you want to do. And this leads us directly to goal achievements. What is goal achievements? And the first thing I said in the beginning of the podcast is how to set a goal that will stretch you that far. You will stretch until your next goal, and you should dream as highly as your brain could. And this is a growth mindset and resilience. And you should hold accountable of your dreams. And I'm putting the next question on you to answer, is how we can master accountability for goal achievements. Is it accountable? Is true that what get measured is get done, is what we can get done or not? And you can answer us.
I'm happy to, and thank you, Saeed, for sharing that. And I have to say, men and women around the world, we're all the same. That's why I said 24/7, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Who are you surrounding yourself with? And I like what the common thread through all of this so far has been that goal achievement, having goals, right? It's you can't just set a goal. I was just interviewing for a position, and they on the job description, they were talking about goal setting. And I said, it's more than goal setting, it's goal achieving. And I love what Napoleon Hill, I don't know if you've read any of his materials, but Napoleon Hill Institute is a powerful organization. And they lift up for us, the power of fear. But we can address that fear. And I had this quote right on my wall here. Whatever the mind can conceive and believe, it can achieve. That came from Napoleon Hill, right? And so I'm a lifelong learner, and I have, in front, behind the computer screen right here, I have these powerful things that speak to me. Whatever works for you, right? And so goal achievement. So cultivating, what does it take for me, for you, for us, to cultivate a growth mindset and that resiliency, right? That is so powerful. And it comes down to, and we just heard Saeed share this. He talked about the choices and the habits. Who are we surrounding ourselves with, right? Men and women around the world, what are we doing? What choices are we making? What decisions? The habits. And are we learning from the lessons that life gives us, right? I love what John Maxwell, he's a leadership guru. He's written, almost 90 books already.
Maxwell, yeah.
I love, how he writes. I can understand his wording and but he wrote a powerful book. Sometimes you win, sometimes you learn. You never lose, right? And so it comes down to that goal achievement, right? It's those choices, the habits, life lessons. We win, or at least if we don't achieve the goal immediately, what are we learning? And maybe our goal, and I've had to learn this, maybe it was too aggressive. Maybe I had to pause and take a moment to evaluate, to then put sub steps, like mini steps, baby steps in place before I was able to really achieve my goal, right? And so I always like to say, we learn from others. And so those leaders, Napoleon Hill, John Maxwell, Earl Nightingale, Jim Rohn, the list goes on, right? We can stand on their shoulders. We can learn from what they shared, the books, the audios that are available to all of us, right? Look our surrounding communities, our leaders, look for someone who's successful. What are their actions, right? And so, I always say free resources are good as long as they're quality, they're factual. As an HR person, certified professional, human resource professional, SHRM, SHRM.org, Society for Human Resource Management, is an awesome resource, right? And so, again, the powerful resources that we all have access to, just make sure they're credible. And so when we're looking at that, how are we learning? Who are we learning from? From a goal achievement, decide where we want to be this time next year. Can we believe this is 2024? And so where did this decade go? Where did this year go? Mid-year, it's before we know it, 2024 is going to be part of our history. And so we need to pause and really ask ourselves, maybe it's a hard question, maybe it's not. Where do we want to be this time next year? I can tell you my goals I've identified. I know I'm going to be in a different place next year, without question, because every day I'm taking one little step towards my goal, achieving my goal. But I think a lot of it has to do with our mindset, our, being positive. I'm not naive. I know the world is a difficult place. There's a lot of complications, complexities that many of us are dealing with, right? But it starts here. And so do I have a glass half full mentality or a glass half empty? Am I looking at opportunity? Am I, not being critical? Am I not sharing my biases? Do I have them in check? And so holding oneself, and I'm transitioning to the second part of this, holding oneself accountable, right? And others accountable in a supportive manner. And so what does that mean? Well, engage our colleagues, our family, friends, colleagues, communities, whom we trust, who we have a relationship with, right? Our trusted colleagues. And so, do we have an accountability partner? And a goal achievement, something, it's, I don't know how to achieve that. Well, do you have a mentor? And a mentor or a colleague that you trust, it doesn't have to be a formal mentor. That's why I say, look at somebody who's already accomplished that or successful. Ask them, would you like to grab a coffee? Would you like to have a lunch? And just let me ask you a couple questions. John Maxwell shares all the time. That's what he got him started. He would reach out to those who had already walked where he wanted to walk. And he would meet up with them and ask them questions. And so whatever process we use, that's just a way. And so, the process that we follow, regardless of our circumstances, but holding ourselves accountable, having an accountability partner, maybe as we just heard from Saeed, where are we traveling? Who do we surround ourselves with? Maybe a good colleague, we can be each other's accountability partner. So it's something to think about, but we benefit from another person who has similar experiences, who is willing to share and take our questions. So, that's what comes to my mind as far as mastering accountability for goal achievement. Again, as you've heard, personal branding, life planning is a key part of that is goal achievement. And I appreciate what Saeed is doing with these podcasts. We're giving you the nuggets of gold for consideration, techniques that have worked, that are proven effective. So I transition back to you, Saeed.
Yeah. Actually, if I can summarize all what you've said in one sentence, which was very difficult for me. I would say there is no losing, only learning. When you become obsessed with your dreams, with your goals, with your highly demanded goals, then you will start being then you will perceive life as a learning experience. You will perceive your journey as a learning experience. Your conflicts, your branding, your everything is around you. You will see as a learning space. So there is no chance for you to fail because there is no losing, only learning. So as we get to the end of this podcast, when we should also discuss the last point, which is how can in our audience develop a critical thinking and problem solving skills, and it's important for goal achievement or not, and is it important for workplace issues or not? So that's what we want to learn from you.
Absolutely. Thank you, Saeed. So maximizing our human resources from a perspective of collaborating with others. And again, I'm just sharing, my first book was focused on human resources, and it's a practical guide for new managers and small businesses. So it's that HR goal achievement pocket guide. And so again, recognizing as a human resource professional, having my certifications, and how can, from a human resource and HR perspective, how can we, benefit? So one way is to collaborate with our colleagues, right? And within an organization, there are, opportunities for cross-functional teams for us to come together. As a Six Sigma Black Belt, that's how I got my projects completed. I had members from various functions come together, and so I would just run through the process and address these issues, concerns with that what we were trying to accomplish. And so one of the things from an investigation perspective, determine who needs to be part of the discussion. Who are we seeking information from? That's how to maximize this from this perspective of, having a plan. Before we even, meet with anybody, put pen to paper and think about what is it that we're trying to accomplish. And so then when we do our pre-planning, then we're going to interview. So if there was a workplace issue, maybe there was a conflict, and I'm a trained investigator as a mediator, and I also do workplace investigations. So the process that we run through from an HR perspective is we pre-plan, we interview, we identify what are the findings when we converse with our colleagues. We're articulating the findings. What did we learn when we talked with the folks that we interviewed? drafting that report, then following up, and then logging that. So that's the process that I use. But the key for success is having a diversity of interviewers, right? So HR, that's why I love the field of HR, human resources. I love the fact that we get to work with men, women, different ethnicities, people around the world. We all come together. We're all people. We're the same, but different, right? And so, part of the key to success is that diversity of interviewers, having our questions articulated in advance, conducting those interviews, learning what the issue is, maintaining confidentiality. So if you're running an investigative process, confidentiality is a core component. Documenting, closing out, and then following up with all the stakeholders, right? Who are we, helping? And so, really from developing a critical thinking or problem-solving perspective, our skill sets for workplace issues, reviewing, the what, who, where, when, why, how much, detail all of that. Who, what, when, and where, right? How. I mean, and so that I love that 5 why approach, WHY. The 5 why approach is to really ask effective questions. And then once the first level of why, well, then why is that? And you keep asking. And after you ask why 5 times, you really get down to the core. So that's a powerful technique approach from a HR perspective, utilizing, a repeatable, objective approach, a process, ensuring that there's no biases that, sometimes we're not even aware of a bias that we might have. I'll never forget, I'm working on my dissertation, and my chairperson says, "Frank, you do know you have a bias built into this." I'm like, "What is that?" She said, "You, Dr. Lynn Svenning, was powerful." She says, "You've done a really good job surrounding yourself with great people and great organizations." So, my dissertation was personal goal setting. Those that achieve their goals have a more impactful quality of life satisfaction experience. And the population that I surveyed did in fact show that. And that was her point. She said, you've interviewed 83 people for your research content. And so what you've been able to do is, tap in to the people that you've surrounded yourself with. So I had to put that in my dissertation for sure, my findings. But I point that out. We all have biases, just keep them in check and be aware of them. And then lastly, the engaging colleagues for that critical thinking, and making sure that, those that we engage with, hopefully there's policies in place from our organizations that everybody's trained. And so that's what comes to my mind when we're maximizing human resources for any investigatory process. That's what comes to mind. And I'll turn it back over to you, Sahid.
Exactly. Thank you. And such a great answer you presented to us. And we've come to a conclusion. And what I want to say, my last word in this podcast will be that, we're talking about a start point, which is A, and a finish point, which is the goal achievement, which is Z. And I always quote that without consistency, you will never start. Because if you are not consistent, you will never start. But listen to this. But without commitment, you will never finish. So this is a very proverb that you can carry on with you every day. If you are not consistent, you will never start. And if you start and you're not committed to your goals, you will never finish. And so what's the point? And learn that every new discipline affects the rest. There are many effects, like the butterfly effects, the many effects that explain how each new discipline you acquire affects the rest. Don't say that it's not important. No, it all matters. And every new discipline makes a difference. If you do 100 push-ups, for example, every day for a year, you will become better than 95% of people around you. So what's the reason behind this is that if you keep small habits in your day, consistency with time, you will be more better than everyone around you. And consistency is self-discipline. So we're talking about a circle of life. If you watch the movie of Circle of Life, this is the circle of life, is consistency and self-discipline. And it doesn't matter if you attend every of our podcasts, every seminar that comes to your town or to your village, and don't apply what you learn. Because one thing is better than knowledge. Knowledge is the better thing we can learn, but one thing can be better than knowledge. And it's applied knowledge. How you will apply the knowledge. And you will achieve admirable results. And to do so, you should master the arts of leadership, master the art of relationships, of sales, of time management. These are some small habits that you should acquire. And it takes discipline to break the fear. It takes discipline to accept your errors. It takes discipline to start with yourself, to be honest with yourself, with people, to respect your values, to achieve your goals, to change your habits. And so now, if we move to the practical side of this podcast, we've taken advantage of this podcast and asked Dr. Frank about everything we could ask. But now the step is yours. Your day is your day. It's not Frank's day or my day or someone else's day. It's your day. And the thing that I advise you to do, and Dr. Frank will agree with me, and it's you should start doing a list. Start getting a list after this podcast of the things, of the stuff you could do but you didn't. The things, it's very simple. The things that you could do, you can do. You have the power to do, you have control to do, but you didn't. It can be some small stuff, some big stuff, whatever. Start with this life-changing process and do it now. Don't procrastinate, because procrastination is not commitment, and it's not consistency at the time. So before we part ways, I would like to invite you to carry the spirits of this episode with you, because we talked about inspiration, about leadership, about goal achievement, about life mastery, about many things that can help you become the man you want to be, become the woman you want to be. So it's not just about self-branding, about personal branding, about goal achievement. It's a circle of life, it's a lifestyle. So, and think about the gifts you hold. Every one of us, each one of us holds some gifts in his personality, in his way of living, in his way of acting. We hold gifts. You hold the gifts. You should understand these gifts and get the better of what you can on it. So stay tuned for the adventures that lie ahead on Future Leaders Podcasts, on Future Skills Podcasts. And until next time, keep dreaming, keep questioning, and keep inspiring. Thank you, Dr. Frank.
You're welcome. Have an awesome day.
Thank you.